Is this on? It's now 6 o'clock, time to start our meeting for December 13th, 2023. This is the Midvale Planning and Zoning Commission. We start our meetings by repeating the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Aubrey, can we have a roll call?
Chair Lidke.
Here.
Vice Chair Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Tippett.
Here.
Commissioner Snow.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Benson
Is excused.
And Commissioner Kasparian
Haven't heard.
also excused.
Okay. Thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of November 8th, 2023? And is there any changes to them that you see? Okay. All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Do we need to state the date, though?
Oh,
Oh, sorry. The minutes of November 8th, is that correct?
Yeah.
2023.
another second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, approval of the minutes for November 8th, 2023 are approved. We have quite a lot on the agenda tonight, more so than we've had in the past, so we'll keep going down here. Just a notice to the public. Many of these will have items for public comment. We'll be taking public comments in regards to each of these items. Any other, public comments that are in general nature, you're welcome to attend City Council on January 2nd, and that's the appropriate format for those comments. Our first applicant is Jackson Aguilar. He requests approval of a conditional use permit for, before I start, I wanted to just, item number 5 is the Midvale Bingham Junction Station Area Plan. If any of you are here for that, for public comment, they will not be presenting that. That was not completed in time for this meeting. And so we will not be presenting that, but we'll open it up for any public comments if you'd like to stay and make public comments regarding the station area plan. If not, it'll be reposted and you can come back. That way you don't have to sit through the whole meeting for it. Okay, Jackson Aguilar requests approval of a conditional use permit for a vehicle sales major business to be located at 7321 South State Street, Suite 6, in the State Street Commercial Zone, SSC. Jonathan Anderson, our planner, will be presenting.
Good evening, Commissioners. As Chair Lidke said, this is for a conditional use permit for a vehicle sales business at this location. So here's just, the overview of where the nearby properties are. This is a site plan that we were provided. It meets all of our parking regulations and other standards. All of our applicable staff have reviewed and approved this, and we forwarded on to you guys. So, and there was no public comment specifically in regards to this. The only calls I had for any of the projects that are on the agenda tonight is just more general questions for the meeting, so I have no public comments on any of the items.
Okay. And is the applicant here? If you'd like to come forward and state your name, and if you'd like to add anything.
No, Jason Aguilar. No, my name is Jason Aguilar.
Okay. And Esau Arrieta is the interpreter for Jackson. We thank you for being here. And so this is going to be, this isn't
Esto no es.
a mechanic shop, it's just
Just vehicles.
vehicle sales.
Solamente para la venta de vehículos.
Correct.
No, no es nada mecánico, solamente venta de vehículos.
Yes, it's nothing in the mechanic side, it's only the sale of the vehicles.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for our applicant?
Que alguien tenga para el solicitante.
I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Gracias.
Appreciate it. We'll now open the public hearing portion of this. If you would have anything to say about this, if you'd come forward and state your name.
My name is Miguel Carrasco, and I just wanted to make a correction on that. I'll be the person leasing the office, and it's Suite G, not Suite 6. So I just wanted to make sure that was correct on the application.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Seeing no public comments, no further public comments, I close this portion of the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Now we have a motion or a discussion. Does anybody have any concerns or?
No, it's just a vehicle sales. I don't have any concerns at all.
I didn't see anything and they met all the criteria for the conditional use permit.
Yep.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the conditional use permit for a vehicle sales major business to be located at 7321 South State Street with the finding noted in the staff report.
I second it.
Roll call vote?
Chair Lidke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes?
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you. Welcome to Midvale. All right, our second order of business is Alan Garcia. He requests approval of a conditional use permit for a vehicle sales major business to be located at 103 East, 7200 South in the Regional Commercial 7200 South Overlay Zone, RC 720. And Jonathan will present again for the city staff.
All right, so this is almost a carbon copy of the other one, just a little bit further north of the previous location. This one we've also reviewed as city staff, and all parking and other requirements have been met. And again, no public comment has been received for this. Do you have any questions for me?
So it's not 103 East?
It is,
Is that?
103 East.
yeah.
Which is east of state?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, state's the big long road on the left side of the image
Okay.
here. So,
North is
yes. North is
Okay.
up.
Trying to picture it again.
Trying to picture where it is.
So,
There's the two commercial, like smaller level buildings behind the property there off of State, and it's just in the rear of
You know
those.
where the,
Bohemian.
no,
On the
it's
other
on
side
the
of
other
the
side
road.
of the street.
yeah, it's on the north side, across
Where-
the street.
Okay,
There's that vacuum cleaner repair
Oh, got
place.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
We're facing west, that's facing north, and we
Yeah.
get lost. All right, is the applicant here? Would they like to, if you'd state your name and add anything to the record?
My name's Alan Garcia, and I'm just excited for this. So,
How long have you been in business?
I've been doing car sales since about 2019,
Okay,
and now I'm just ready to branch out into my own. So,
okay, great. Well,
It's exciting.
sounds great.
very-
Any questions for Alan?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, thank you for being here, Alan.
hey, thank you for having me.
We'll open the public hearing portion of this. If there's anybody from the public that would like to make a comment, please come forward, state your name.
Doesn't look like there's much public comment. I make a motion that we close the public comment part of this.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion plan, our commission, hearing, public hearing is closed
You'll get
on
it in
that
a
and
second.
passes. We'll get there. Any discussion on this? Seems straightforward as the other. All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the conditional use permit for vehicle sales, a major business located at 103 East Fort Union Boulevard with the findings noted in the staff report.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote?
Chair Lidkey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, welcome to Midvale, Alan. Thank you for being here. All right, our next item is Brian Coleman requests approval of a conditional use permit for an alcoholic beverage package agency to be located at 73 West, 7200 South in the State Street Commercial Zone, SSC. And Jonathan will be presenting again.
Okay, so this is another conditional use permit, also located in the nearby where we've had the previous permits. This one is for a package alcoholic agency. So the business that applied for this Two Row Brewing, they also have other business licenses currently with us. This is, I believe, just the last one that they need for all of the business activities they'll be doing. So, and no public comment has been received on this one as well.
How long? It's been open, hasn't it?
Yes, they have other active licenses currently.
And they just had their grand opening at that location a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yep.
And this is for them to package it and then sell it to
Correct.
outside vendors and stuff.
And weren't they already doing that at their other location? When
Yes,
it
I
was
don't have,
on-
I don't know the address, but I'm sure.
Yeah, it was on like Fifth West, and they had a location over there, and it was the same business. Now they
Correct.
have, that was just a pickup kind of place to go pick up packaged.
Okay,
And now they have a kind of a restaurant and a brewery kind of setting in this
Okay.
new location. So they're expanding.
oh, okay, great.
That's a large space, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any questions for Jonathan? Okay, is the applicant here? If you'd like to come forward, state your name and add anything to the public record that you'd like.
My name is Brian Coleman. I am the founder of Two Row Brewing. We've been in Midvale 8 years. We've had a package agency, like you said, at the old location. It was 3rd West and 68 South in the industrial area back there. We love Midvale. We've been looking for a suitable location in Midvale for years, and one finally came up, so we jumped on it, and we are up and running. But the package agency would definitely finish off what we like to do, selling to licensees, and we actually need it to sell beer to ourselves.
To the corporation.
Yeah.
Any
But-
questions for the applicant?
No.
Well, we're glad that you wanted to stay in Midvale.
It was pretty important to us to stay in the area, and we developed a long relationship with. He doesn't work for Midvale anymore, but the business guy, and I just decided that we needed to stay in Midvale, and it was like I said, it was a long, hard search, but we're in a great spot now.
Great. And it's a restaurant too?
Yeah, we've got food.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
It's not full-blown restaurant yet, but,
You're building up.
yep.
Well, you've
We're
only been
working on
open a couple
Little,
weeks.
little
Yeah.
steps.
The build-out was not cheap.
Took longer and cost more than
Right.
you wanted it to.
Yes.
Oh, great,
But yeah, everything's going good so far.
great. Well, thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll open the public hearing portion of this. If anybody would like to make any public comments, please come forward, state your name.
Seeing no public comments, I move that we close a portion of the public hearing.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Any discussions?
I think it's important to have access to the beer that you make. Otherwise, what are we doing?
I take it you're a fan. Well, we appreciate that you're wanting to stay in Midville and willing to.
That's a unique wrinkle that I hope we can fix.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I move that we approve the conditional use permit for an alcoholic beverage package agency located at 73 West, 7200 South, with the findings noted in the staff report.
I'll second.
Roll call vote?
Chair Lidke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, welcome. You
Again.
got all your licenses, I think. Thank you, Brian, for being here. Okay, our next item is Dallin Aston request approval of a conditional use permit for a vehicle repair use at 652 East Fort Union Boulevard in the Regional Commercial Zone, RC. And Jonathan is presenting again. It's your night, Jonathan.
It is. So this one was a little bit more in depth. It's a new build. On the map depicts multiple parcels, but that's actually not the case. And we've received information from the applicant that it indeed has been. It is not 3 parcels as the map shows here. But this is a new build. I can get my computer if you want to look at these any further. It's also in your staff reports for all of the construction drawings, site plan. But I've included the basic site plan and also the landscape plan here if we need to reference it all. I haven't received any phone calls or any other public comment for this project. It's met all of our requirements for landscaping, buffers, setbacks, all that, so everything looks good.
Okay, great. What about lighting?
It has met all the lighting requirements,
Okay.
and that plan is in the packet.
Okay. All right, I know lighting's always a concern.
Especially with the residential to the west here,
Right.
yes.
Right.
And we ensured that it met everything that was required by our code, so it's all good.
Okay, great. Any comments for Jonathan?
Not right now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, is the applicant here? If you'd like to come forward and state your name and add anything to it?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dallin Aston. I represent NovaSource Development. We are the tenant that we are working with, our operator, Valvoline Instant Oil Change, is the third. So QAS is the third largest franchisee of Valvoline in the nation, and we're their preferred developer over here in the West. And so we have several projects in the state, and they are really top-notch, really clean, really great operator. One thing to be aware of and to note is all of the operations, there's not major repairs happening in this building. The vast majority are simple maintenance. Oil changes are the primary, and there's several things like battery replacement, headlight and tail light replacement, tire rotation, that kind of thing. But it's all done inside the building. So it's relatively quiet, and hours of operation are typically weekdays 8 to 7 p.m. and on weekends, Saturdays it's 9 or 8 to 6, and then Sundays it's 9 to 5. There's no overnight parking. There's no overnight services or anything of the sort. And so Valvoline is a really top-notch operator, and we estimate this location will probably have 40 vehicles a day around that. And so over a 9-10 hour day, that's typically 10 cars or 4 cars an hour. So it's not a high traffic location such as a fast food or something like that. It's a pretty low impact on traffic and really great operator. So excited to be here.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open it up for public hearing. If anybody would like to make any comments, please come forward, state your name.
no public comments, I move that we close this portion of the public hearing.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, public hearing is now closed. Any commission discussion, any questions for staff or the applicant or?
No, it appeared that reading through the packet that all conditions are met as far as, getting rid of old oil and things like that.
Yeah.
It's not an issue, so I don't see any problems.
Well, and I like their plans. It looks like a real clean business and would
Help right there.
add to that, yeah.
Yeah,
It
An
would-
empty lot, yeah.
It would add
that'll be good.
to that area, so,
It's an interesting buffer between that residential, the newer residential, and then the busyness of that Maverick
Yeah.
on the corner. So it's kind of a nice in-between.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's true. Especially your evenings and night, so,
Yeah, that's the best part, is it's not all night. And
Yeah, it's
all
not
that.
a-
That's nice.
it's not a fast food where they have everybody lined up. Clara and I won't name them, but,
Thinking Chick-fil-A?
Okay. I move that we approve the conditional use permit for a vehicle repair facility to be located at 652 East Fort Union Boulevard with the finding noted in the staff report.
I'll second.
roll call vote?
Chair Ludke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you for being here, Dallin. Appreciate it, and welcome to Midvale. Okay, number 5 is the Midvale Bingham Junction Station Area Plan, which is not being presented. If there's anybody here that would like to make public comment, we'll now open the public hearing portion.
I'm here to talk about the other station.
Okay. All right, motion.
I move that we close the public hearing portion for number 5 on the agenda.
Second? Do we have
Aye.
a second?
Yeah, we have a second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Maybe next time.
Adam will be presenting this next one. It's the Midvale Fort Union and Center Street Station Area Plan. And turn the time over to Aaron. Adam, sorry.
Adam.
Aaron's got the next one.
The most fun one. So,
So there's caffeine over there.
yeah, we may need it then. No. I just wanted to give a brief introduction to this. These station area plans are in response to House Bill 462, which was approved in 2022 by the Utah State Legislature. And this bill requires cities with fixed rail guideways, which is commuter and light rail, to prepare these station area plans for a radius of a half mile around each of these stations. In Midvale, we have 3 stations. We have the Bingham Junction, we have Midvale Fort Union, and Midvale Center. As the chair stated, the Bingham Junction plan wasn't quite ready tonight, and we wanted to give you a draft that was complete. While we could have given you a somewhat incomplete draft, we felt that you needed a full draft, and we would be better prepared to discuss that one. However, the other 2 stations, Fort Union and Center, they are covered basically under one station area plan because those, the radius of each of those overlaps. And so we've treated them as one station area. And so we have Ryan Wallace from MHTN here to kind of go through that with you tonight. This is kind of exciting in that we are one of the first cities to complete these plans. Once they are approved by City Council, then it moves on to Wasatch Front Regional Council. The acronym we use is WFRC. They will certify the plan, and then it's basically official with the state. And again, we are one of the among the first cities to prepare and get these adopted. Following that, there are some recommendations as far as what we should do to amend our zoning, and planners are working on that, and that will come before you likely in a few months, things that we could do to encourage the development that the state is, or the state would like us to have in these areas, because they are areas that are prime for redevelopment, and these are good areas that can support mixed uses, higher densities, and whatnot. Ryan will likely touch on this in the plan, but one of the things that has impressed me with the plan that we've worked with MHTN for this area, especially the Center Street station, there's a large area of existing single-family residential. And from the start of this, we let them know that these areas, these single-family areas, we're really not looking for large-scale changes to those areas. The Fort Union station has so much potential for redevelopment, and there is potential in the Center Street station as well. But one of the things that they've identified in the plan is they've labeled these existing single-family residential neighborhoods as areas of stability. And as such, those areas of stability are largely left alone. We knew that that would be important to the residents and you as Planning Commission and the council. So you'll likely see that as Ryan goes through some of the maps. What we're looking for tonight, what I'm hopeful that we get from you as a Planning Commission is a recommendation of approval so that we can then take this to City Council for formal adoption. The recommended motion is very simple. It's just listed on your staff report. I didn't create a slide for it, but if there is any question, I'm happy to come up and read that if you can't find it. But it is on that staff report. So I know it's buried in the document that you have of the packet, but I'm happy to pull that up if you need. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Ryan, and I can answer any questions along the way. Elizabeth's been working on this. Vendaline, there's a lot of us that have been working on this, so any of us are happy to jump in and answer questions you may have.
When did we first start this?
Oh man, has it been about a year now?
Yeah, it's getting close, 10
Yeah,
months.
yeah, so.
They had a cute chart.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yes.
I read the chart.
How do we plug this?
Picture.
Yes. I think it's down here
There's a song
somewhere.
for it. It's one of the cables. This one. Thank you. That's great.
Oh,
There it is.
There it is. How about that? Does this doesn't work? Okay. Let's see. No problem. Let me see if this works. Okay, we'll just have to do it old school. Good to be with you. Adam gave a great introduction, I think. As he mentioned, we've been working on this since the spring. Great service and interaction with city staff. We've also been partnered with UTA, who's been a really excellent partner throughout this process, not only on the station area, but they own some properties in these station areas as well, and they're eager to see redevelopment that aligns to transit-oriented development and would be a service to Midvale. So they've been a really great partner throughout this process. As Adam mentioned, maybe just a tiny bit more on that House bill that was passed in 2022. This is part of, you've probably heard quite a bit from our state legislature, trying to respond to housing affordability and housing shortages that we've had. And they're recognizing this opportunity to develop out areas around public investments of transportation infrastructure as a major way to solve kind of two birds with one stone, trying to reduce vehicle congestion and provide a variety of transportation and housing options at one location, right? So the objectives they called for is availability of affordable housing, promote sustainable environmental conditions, that's kind of talking about air quality, among other things. Enhance access to opportunities, they'd love to see, right? We saw quite a few businesses coming in tonight. They'd like to see more kind of entrepreneurial business opportunities around station areas and increasing transportation choices and connections. So the response that Wasatch Front Regional Council is going to be looking for to certify this plan, you see it right. They want to see plans that are guided by clear principles and visions, which we'll talk about tonight. They want to see obvious and connected stakeholder engagement. They want to know that you've analyzed existing conditions, and they want to see how would you implement this plan over 5 years. So we'll talk about all those things together. Adam gave an excellent segue here. One of the first things we did, you may recognize me, we worked on the State Street corridor plan with your community. And from that, we learned there are some very stable, single-family residential neighborhoods, people that have lived in Midvale a very long time, care deeply about their community, and are proud of their neighborhoods. We heard from them throughout this process some concern to see redevelopment. Right, there have been past projects where parking has spilled into single-family neighborhoods, things like that. So one of the first things we did was try to identify those areas. We called them areas of stability. And we don't think it's in the intent of what the legislature has asked to do here is to try to disrupt those areas, but rather target potential areas where redevelopment does make sense. So the plan is geared around, hey, these residential neighborhoods are a benefit to Midvale. They're kind of core to your identity. So we don't want to disrupt those, but we want to target areas where redevelopment may make sense, right? Buildings that have seen better days, parking lots that could be, better future uses. UTA has several lots, for instance, in this area that just simply are underutilized, and from conversations we had with the city council, some of them appear to be kind of safety challenges. So the orange areas that you're seeing, right, particularly Center Station, 65% of that area is single family that's very stable that we're not looking at, and roughly the southern 40% of the Fort Union station area. Midvale is very unique to have 3 station areas. Other communities would be really happy to have that. So it's a great benefit that you have. The 2 being so closely located together, as Adam pointed out, that's the reason it's all one station area plan, but you're going to see very specific recommendations for each. So we're going to meet the criteria for both, but we thought that by doing it as a single process, that would kind of reduce survey and meeting fatigue, right, for people living in the same area and overlaps. We thought that would help bring more energy and engagement from stakeholders. So just a little bit about the engagement process. MHTN supported this. It was actually led by Horrocks, who's a transportation planning group many of you probably know, and they have a very robust outreach group because they do this all the time for road changes to roadways, highways, all those kinds of things. So just some of the key things we heard. The people who responded, 80% lived really close to Center Station. That's where we got quite a bit of an engagement and feedback, and I think it's because of how much of that area are longtime residents, right? Probably some of you live in that area. Of the respondents, about a third said they at least take transit a few times a year. And we wanted to hear from both. We wanted to hear from the people who ride it and would love to see improvements, and we wanted to hear from people who don't, and what are the reasons they don't, and how could we entice some of that behavior. Not everyone needs to take transit every day, but it is a great option for certain activities. So we want to remove any barriers for people accessing those station areas, right? So what were some of the barriers? People found some challenges getting there by bike or on foot. Sometimes that's because we know there are busy roadways near these station areas, State Street, 7200, very busy, people coming off the freeway. Lots of curb cuts, a lot of things happening in those environments. It doesn't always feel like the safest environment for people walking and biking, and we heard that. Another interesting fact that came out is that people mentioned they would love to see groups who develop in these areas offer incentives for residents or employees of a business, right? Give them an opportunity, maybe part of their rental agreements would include transit passes, things like that. That came out of some of the workshops. Really interesting thought, right? For new development that occurs, a way to potentially reduce the number of vehicles that need to park and are using the roadways. So some of the initial things we heard. And then we dug down in some of these sessions, trying to understand what types of improvements would people like to see, what are some of the barriers. I won't go into all of them, but we've talked about them briefly, right? A feeling of safety, ease of access to both station areas came up, right? People felt sometimes uncomfortable, or even just a lack of some of the amenities you'd like to see when riding transit. You may want to stop and grab a coffee, or, right, many times you end up waiting before you take a train, and so having some basic kind of retail amenities, shelters, comfortable environment, all those kinds of things really matter. Lighting, other safety considerations. People did want to see more amenities, more civic space in the vicinity of these station areas if possible. So that precipitated a really interesting conversation. Now, I don't want you to take what I'm saying as, I'm not speaking on behalf of the city council, but we had 3 different working session discussions with the council, and they all centered around this idea. We brought in a mural, which you'll all recognize, but the idea that came out of those conversations was the council generally saying, we're in favor of redevelopment at these areas if it's not at the loss of kind of identity and character of Midvale. We'd love to see the benefits of redevelopment in some of these areas, but we don't want to see the downsides of development that we think will achieve what we hope for our community, and then it falls short, or it causes other unintended consequences, challenges around the station areas. And so we spent most of our time in those conversations about what are the trade-offs that would need to exist in this plan that would create an incentive for private development to come to these areas. But what are the non-negotiable areas from a city council perspective that you'd like to see that would allow you to feel comfortable with saying, yes, this is the type of development we'd like to see in this area. So hopefully that's what I'm now going to articulate to you just a little bit. So the vision for Fort Union Station area, I had a lot of words on the slide, I don't need to read all of it, but Fort Union Station area is about becoming a welcoming gateway with more opportunities to live, work, and play in that area. Right now, I think we know a lot of that is work. Right, there's kind of manufacturing and kind of light industrial uses in that area, but it presents a significant opportunity for the community to have more of a kind of walkable, welcoming gateway for those entering the community. So this is kind of an artist's rendering of what could happen immediately adjacent to where Fort Union, where tracks crosses Fort Union, in what today is a surface parking lot with fencing. Right, so this would be an opportunity for ground floor activating mixture of uses that could support those who are preparing to or getting ready to ride transit. And we heard very loud and clear from the city council, when we see taller, more dense development, we want a little bit of breathing room. We want sidewalks with setbacks. We'd like to see more green space, more trees that are well maintained. So what we've shown here is a step back away from the rail line. It becomes a trail or pathway, right? So it creates a visual connection into the station area, but you have ground floor activating uses to invite people in, and right, becomes that welcoming gateway that you'd hope to see. Somewhat differently, if we look at Center Station, right, this was seen as kind of a crossroads in the community, the heart of the community in many ways, but it's the kind of a crossroads of some regional transportation for people driving, riding bikes, walking. Center Street is crucial in your community in terms of being an east-west connection. And so that station area is so close to one of your largest city parks, really great opportunity to become the center of what people see as kind of downtown Midvale, so to speak. And so that was part of the vision here, is how do you build on and protect those stable single-family residences, creating a variety of new uses that feel of their place, that feel kind of the center of Midvale. So a view of what that could potentially look like. You see some improvements implied along Center Street, greater density but activating ground floor uses with some residential above, thoughtful kind of site planning to allow views from State Street back into the station area. That's one of the things you always want to do if you invite new uses, right? These transit-oriented development uses, you still want it to remain intuitive, easy to use the station area. Many people who ride transit, it's their first time coming to an area, so you want to make it work for the person who's new to the area and the person who lives or works in and around the vicinity. And we wanted it to feel like a part of Midvale. Okay, so here we are now. These are kind of concept level plans of what could transpire in these areas. So we still have our areas of stability. And then you're going to see some of the new uses with anywhere we have a ground plane that's kind of a white background, you'll see some new uses. So at Fort Union Station, primarily north of the station area, as we talked about, close to the interstate. And then at Center Station, it's really around right at Center Street and State Street. So if we were to look a little bit more closely, what could those look like? One of the big things you'll notice as these transition into areas that everyone is welcome. Lots of greenery, lots of open space, comfortable, inviting kind of streetscape environments. You'll see, if we look at Center Station, for instance, UTA owns that parcel, that southernmost odd-shaped parcel that you've probably all seen sitting there as a surface parking lot for quite a few years. That was one of the areas that was mentioned as has been problematic. You'll see we've shown kind of lower scale uses there, attached style 2 and 3 story, so that they would serve as a buffer to some of the slightly taller uses where State and Center meet. So we've tried to be very thoughtful about not presenting a scale that feels out of touch with those single family. And some of the taller uses are at the corner of State and Center or over by Interstate 15 along Fort Union. And then you'll see again, they've similarly stepped where your northern boundary meets there with Murray. And you'll see many of these are uses that would be mixed uses primarily along major corridors. In other areas where they're not, when they don't have that kind of frontage, they're primarily residential uses. And you're going to see that what we've implied is kind of a reintroduction of a walkable street grid in those areas that today are kind of driven by freight needs and other things, but you'd want to reintroduce a more walkable, smaller scale grid in those areas if it becomes more residential in nature. Now, we know these don't happen overnight, but that's what Adam was implying too, that for some of these things to occur, there would be changes to zoning or updates to where zones are applied or slight updates and adjustments to allow for certain types of developments. Let's talk for just a moment. The other item that Horrocks helped us with was planning for what's known as first mile, last mile connections. It's a term of the industry basically recognizing that before you get to transit, most people don't live right at the station, but there are significant populations who live within a half mile or 1 mile radius. So if you can make that first mile connection or your last mile connection to and from transit easier, more people are likely to ride it. But I think we all know, if we're honest with ourselves, if I live close to a station, but I've climbed in my car at that point, I think I'm just going to drive to where I'm going. But if there's a great bike path that feels very comfortable, very safe, well lit, I could ride it with my children, I'm more likely to take transit and say I'm going down to a Real Salt Lake game. I don't want to try to fight for parking. I can ride my bike, park at the station area, and ride it down. You know, we don't need to do it every day, but if you remove some of those barriers and make it more enjoyable, many people will choose it at least a few times a year. And that's what this is all about. So these are about enhancing connections and making it easier to walk and bike to get to the station areas. As we look at three-dimensional views of these spaces, it gives you a sense of some of the scale. So where you see this kind of pink color, we're talking mixed uses, usually an activated ground floor with likely residential above in this particular area. Yellow uses would be residential. Red would be strictly commercial, likely a retail use in this particular instance. And we've given a small sense of what the scale of this that we'd be talking about could be, right? So mixed use residential, somewhere between 400 and 500 units. Purely residential, depending on the unit mix and scale of development, it could be 800 to 1,000 units, and 150 to 200, attached townhouse style units, and then also some commercial. Now, it's not going to develop just like this, but it's showing you what could be, right? It just gives you a general sense of what kind of scale are we talking about here. Much lower scale in terms of quantity here at Center Station, because there's fewer areas to work within. And I will acknowledge the post office sits here. We don't know if that moves, so that was a comment we received from the city council, so we do have kind of an iteration showing that as well. But here we're talking about mixed use residential on the blocks that you're seeing. Could be as many as 300 to 400, maybe 50 to 100 residential units, not a lot, and then, 20 townhouse style. So limited, very targeted kind of opportunity here, but one that we know there's been past development interest in. This is something that some refinements to zoning may entice and allow you to get just the type of development you want, but there are some challenges with the parcels here. I think we know that. So, for instance, one of those that came up at our last city council was the post office saying, we love having an institutional use here, but could it be done in a different way? Could it be the ground floor of something that's developed above it? UTA has been speaking or reaching out to the post office, trying to instigate that very conversation. They've not had success as of yet, but they have had other instances in the state where they've seen some success, so they'd like to continue that conversation. UTA has taken a very active interest in this station area very specifically, and they're eager to see development here by finding the right development partner. Let's see. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, so you're probably wondering what are some of the specific suggestions. So in terms of kind of parks and transportation, finding more opportunities to either acquire land or get park space through shared use of private development. You saw crossing improvements on and off-street facility improvements. Sometimes these are UDOT facilities, sometimes they're Midvale city facilities. An opportunity for shared parking really makes a lot of sense at these station areas. If you've got obvious daytime and nighttime separated uses, so that's a great opportunity. So oftentimes, office and residential can go nicely together. For instance, pedestrian crossings in and around track stations, really important. There are a few that came out of our community surveying. People would like to see a little bit better access. That's some of those connections that you saw on the recommendations from Horrocks. And then as we slip over to the kind of strategies and funding, one of these is start using the strategies that came out of the Midvale Moderate Income Housing Plan. And we know you've already been doing some of that, but continue doing that. These two things can synergize, right? These station areas can be a big part of how you achieve some of those strategies in your MIH. Okay, another thing that I think you'll probably be hearing from staff about is this opportunity for creation of an HTRZ, or a Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone. You've probably already been talking about this. There's a limited number of these, but it's a specific economic tool that can exist at station areas. It has requirements regarding how many units you'll need to, the density that you permit around these station areas. They are competitive because it's a tool that the state doesn't want to just run rampant. Well, I guess I should say more accurately. The state was okay with allowing as many of these as they wanted. The county was concerned that this would create an imbalance of development kind of across the county. And so right now there's a limited number of HTRZs, but we think based on where we sit and what we've looked at, your comparative advantage is quite strong here if the city shows commitment to it and would like to pursue an HTRZ. And that becomes a powerful tool that you can then use to have some funds available to get the type of development that you'd want, right? The city can then participate in, getting the outcome that you're looking for in the development in terms of some of those trade-offs we've talked about, getting some public spaces, making sure you get ground floor uses, if there's improvements to public infrastructure around some of these projects, those kinds of things. Other opportunities, partnering with other entities. There's some state-owned property in these areas. There's UTA-owned properties. Partnering with some of those groups to get to provide incentives to get the development that you're looking for, whether that's moderate income housing, other improvements we just talked about, and then some updates to the TODO zoning, which you have in many of these areas, but some provisions of that have prevented certain developers from being active in this area. So what are some of those revisions? Some of the things that we thought would make sense is some requirements for some ground floor commercial along major corridors, right? So that these do become active spaces that have some ground floor amenities. Looking at front setbacks, right? And what type of commercial you want to get on the ground floor and how the building sits relative to the back of curb on the roadway. Looking at the dwelling unit maximum in that area. Maybe you look at density and height rather than specifically focusing on total number of units. Parking reductions is worth considering. Looking at other developments across UTA's system to see what makes sense. And then we feel like corner locations maybe need some special consideration. That came up at City Council, right? So you noticed in the one view we showed actually the development stepped down and there was a large plaza space. And the City Council said, well, that looks beautiful and we love that. But actually what developers come and say is we want 7 stories right at the corner and we want kind of a 0 lot line. And so maybe that's one of those areas that you say, we need to negotiate on this a little bit, whether that's through your zoning code or other discussions. But it sounded like that has been a point of conversation in the past. Developers wanting the strongest corner they can get, tallest density, and the city feeling like that's maybe not what we want to see there. So that was, right, more conversation needed, I think, on that piece. One example that we thought to share that, Adam, I don't even know if we've talked about this with you, but this came up just recently, not too far away from you. This is where Murray is creating their downtown. We're not trying to promote this in any way other than just to say, not too far away from you, there are developments that are occurring that are kind of interesting, right? On publicly owned land, their city is using some RDA or TIF funding to dictate some of the outcome they get in the development. So it's at a major gateway in their community along State Street, and they're getting a mixture of uses. And you're not that far away from this area. So it's just an example of when the cities partner and get involved in development, making a very clear vision of what you'd like to see, looking for the right development partner. Sometimes you participate financially, but it allows you to get the type of, achieve the vision that you're hoping for your city. And, you're seeing market forces not that far north of you along State Street that are showing this works. So we think you've got an opportunity that is here and or arriving. So being clear about what you'd like to see and finding the right development partner, sometimes cities being a little proactive about that can be a positive thing. So those were the slides that I came to share. I do have the document if we have questions. I don't know if Wendelin or Adam or others if there's anything that you think I misspoke on, please feel free to chime in, or if there's anything that's kind of left out. We're just hitting the high points of the conversation, but it's been a great planning process to date. I think you're very well served by your staff. They're engaging with your stakeholders. We had robust community engagement. We had a couple of engagement events that were well attended. We had a few very concerned citizens, but it was more about what the state is trying to do, and they felt the state maybe is overstepping on these stationary plans. But as we see it, the state has given funding to Wasatch Front Regional Council to try to be very site specific and allow. We hope you see this as thoughtful planning, responding to your community. So we see it as, yes, the state is pushing a very strong agenda about development, but they're allowing it to be unique to each community. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution for a stationary plan. And I suspect when you see the Bingham stationary plan, it'll be quite different. It has very different context than these two.
Ryan, where on State Street in Murray is this? Is this where the City Hall currently is?
Yeah, the old City Hall.
Yeah.
And the old Murray Theater. They're redeveloping that whole area. It's going to be awesome.
What, they're not going to have an elementary as the City Hall anymore?
No, they have a brand new City Hall. It's
Oh, do
really
they?
beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
their new
Their
City
city
Hall
hall's
is
set
beautiful.
back just a little bit
Oh,
from
okay.
State
Yeah.
Street, but they're
Yeah.
trying to re-enliven that whole area.
It's over by where the old Murray Mansion is.
Oh,
So
okay.
that, they're using that as their art and museum, and then they've built a new City Hall, and they're redeveloping all of that. It's kind of cool.
And it's all following a vision plan they created for their downtown.
Yeah,
And these stationary
it's gonna be
plans can
great.
be quite
It's gonna be
similar
really
for you.
great. And
Yeah.
we could do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some publicly owned land in this area by the state and UTA partners who, right, that's often an easy place to begin.
It'd be nice if UTA would do something on 7200, wouldn't it?
Well, it'd be nice to just be able to have some development there.
Yeah.
That's
They
what would be
have
nice.
begun, my understanding is that UTA has begun conversations with kind of preferred development groups there. We've not seen site plans or things, but it seems like they had selected a preferred development group they'd like to work with. Wendelin, I think is fair to say. I suspect you'll be hearing more from them in the future.
Can I make a comment on your staff? They have been in those public meeting or open houses and stuff. They've been very patient and very gracious, especially with contentious people. And we express our appreciation to them for that. They've really been very professional and very kind when I could see it would be easy to lose your cool a little
Yeah.
bit.
I'm so glad you said that. I would say that our team cares deeply about every project we work on, and we don't see, there's no one-size-fits-all solution on any of them. And we understand when we come in, oftentimes we're in a situation where change is imminent, and that can be scary. And so I think we try to listen and just understand that. I think a lot of planning is about managing change and trade-offs. And so I'm so glad you said that, because we do care, and we've tried hard to understand Midvale. We see a lot of opportunity in your community. Many of us live not too far away, and so yeah, I'm glad that it came through.
Yeah, they did. I was very impressed, and the staff has been very good too. So
Public interactions can be quite challenging, because oftentimes you're there with nothing but the most sincere intentions, but others are coming with a different perspective. And I think every perspective needs to be listened to and understood before trying to change people's thought process. It's important to listen first.
Well said. I wish I could say.
But it's easier to say it than to remember that in the moment, because you often can feel somewhat attacked. So.
I would have used other words for sure.
well, we appreciate the work you've done. We're excited to see what the future brings and holds for those areas.
I'm curious, do the visions that were stated, do they feel like things you'd like to see at those areas?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Very good.
They do. I feel like we're definitely talking at 100,000 feet. It's not even 10,000 feet, so it can be difficult to shy away from being sucked into some of the plans or the proposals, or just because you're seeing it from a zoning perspective and not necessarily a massing or that sort of thing. It can be hard to see a picture and not just want to punch holes in it, I guess, especially when it came around the post office. I know the one meeting, the one open house I went to, that was still being talked about.
We spend a lot of time trying to show enough detail to give a sense of what the idea is, but try to omit as many other details to allow, just as you're saying, to allow the conversations to be about the bigger general principles, because this is not exactly how it will happen, but it's the types of things you may see. And are these the types of things you'd like to see? And are you willing to allow a little bit more density if you get more comfortable streetscapes, more better public spaces, businesses where people can shop? One of the ideas that came out of City Council, and again, I'm not speaking on their behalf, but just if city funds were going to be used, that those ground floor uses should be things that everyone can use. And that was a pretty clear conversation, that public funds should be for public use and not for private uses only. And so that was something that I think there'll be more conversations about moving forward, if and when the city decides to participate financially in some of these projects in the future.
I am a little bit disappointed that there's not more people here to see kind of this unveiling.
I was kind of excited. The room was full, and then as the
And then everyone left.
Well,
But they will come.
Well,
when
If
we
you
get-
build it, they will come.
That's
Yeah,
true.
they will come. And
the-
it is,
Likely when there's specific
yeah,
development,
and then,
smaller
yeah,
master
yes,
plans, that's
yes.
when the room
That's when the room will be full.
The unfortunate part of that is, a year ago, they should have been participating in force to get this plan, and then they should be participating as the zone changes and stuff, and voicing their concerns and making their comments, so that they're part of the process, rather than the process is done, this is the law, these are the facts,
And they don't like it.
then we don't like it.
Couldn't agree more, because this early stage is when there's a lot of collaboration and engagement, and you have the greatest opportunity to impact things. And then if residents come out as particular zoning changes are coming up and they don't like that, if they haven't participated to date, then you lose some of the context for those specific targeted recommendations.
Yeah.
Certainly. So the understanding that a neighboring city like Murray, we're showing pictures of some of the development that they were at this stage long ago in their planning.
Very long ago.
And so it's hard to, this process goes so slowly sometimes. It can be difficult to understand that and convey it. So I'm hoping it's recorded and someone will come back and see this.
Yeah.
We'll be like, we hope that you were here. So I want people to be involved and celebrate this as much as we can, because it is the community coming together.
Yeah, you raise a good point. Some of those Murray plans have been 5 and 10 years in the making, and now they're beginning to see the fruits of that labor. Yeah, it takes a little while.
Well, it's like, I think of Jordan Bluffs, and their first master plan they brought just had some amazing things, and it is nothing like that now. But there's a lot of good things.
Yeah.
It's just
Different.
times change and finances changes and developers change and, needs. And so, but you have to have a vision first.
It evolves, doesn't it?
Once you have that vision, then you can get the developers and the buy-in.
Yeah,
So-
today, development of residences has been very hot, although recent market forces and rates have changed some of that, and the office market has cooled. But 5 years ago, the office market was, it seemed like there was no end in sight to how many office towers we could see come up along the interstate in our valley. So
Now we're converting them to residential,
yeah,
or at least New York is.
yeah, we've seen one of those happening in downtown Salt Lake.
Well, great. Thank you for your presentation. This is public hearing. Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions to ask? Then we will open for public hearing. Since there is no one here to make public comments, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is passed, and we will close the public hearing. Thank you for waiting through all of our other business and for being here. We appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks for
And
having
tell
me.
your staff thank you for their
I will pass that on.
kindness.
We don't always get that type of appreciation, so I'll be sure to pass it
Yeah,
on.
Recommendation.
I
I don't have the
The
packet.
verbiage,
Does anybody have the verbiage for the recommendation to the city council?
it was a bit buried.
It was buried.
Yeah.
I wanted to cry a little bit.
A motion to approve.
Johnny,
To recommend, yeah.
Yeah,
Approval for the city council.
the language is just simply, I move that we recommend approval of the Midvale Fort Union and Midvale Center Station Area Plan to the city council.
Okay,
And I think he's got it on his screen. I can,
it says, Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of the Midvale Fort Union and Midvale Center Street Station Area Plan to the city council.
That's it.
Second?
I second it.
All right, roll call vote.
Chair Ledke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, great. Now, we have a bunch of zoning changes. So, does anybody need to take a break? Does anybody want to take a 5-minute break before?
Just tell me we're not doing line to line on this.
I made her do it, so.
All right, so we have Title 16 subdivisions of the Midvale Municipal Code. Aaron McKnight, our Deputy City Attorney, is presenting.
Yeah, mine too. Like,
I might actually come grab one.
the stapler had an issue.
Oh, is it? Oh.
I think they thought it was more pages than it was. And they used the heavy duty one and it wasn't quite it. Yeah. The tree could use some more stuff, so.
All right, so, a couple years ago, my very first presentation to the city council, at a city meeting at all, was a code update. I did it with my boss. She started the presentation and went through the part that she had worked on, then turned it over to me. I started explaining what I had done, and got about halfway through, and I saw the mayor falling asleep. he was fishing, with his head. And that's when I knew it was time to just wrap it up and be done. Part of me wants to do that and just say, you know what, legal says we need this. Let's hear the motion. But no, we'll go through it here. I'm hoping not that it won't be too tedious. I'll be watching for the head nods, though.
I feel a greater sense of responsibility.
I did review it before.
Good,
So
good,
that's
okay.
a good thing.
I
Perfect.
reviewed it, I looked at it.
I'm very glad that you reviewed it. I am sad to tell you that it has been changed.
That's what we heard.
Yeah.
We have the final one
So we
here.
spent all that time.
Yep. Well, so I'm actually going to go over the changes that you have in your hand there first, or at least the changes that were made that you can see there first, so that if anything, if you feel alarm bells going off in your head, you can write it down and we can discuss it, or you can have time to look it up or whatever and verify that you're okay with it.
Now, the reason we're doing this is because the state has mandated a bunch of changes, and so now we have to meet what the state has told us we're going to do.
Yeah, so generally speaking,
Some
boy,
of
my
it's
computer's
probably
struggling.
some cleanup, but
Yeah, so generally speaking, this code change was initiated due to Senate Bill 174 in the last general session. Thank you. But when we got looking at it, we determined that widespread changes should be made to our subdivision ordinances for a variety of reasons, and I'll go over some of those specifics. But just to get started, excuse me. I should have brought my cough drops. So changes that are made to what you received last week compared to what you have in front of you. The majority of those changes are to format or, typos, capitalizations, that kind of a thing. But there were a couple of other things. In our code, there was a section that required developers to provide easements to landlocked lots. And we felt in the legal department a little bit iffy about requiring that. And so we just made a requirement that you can't landlock a piece of property, rather than requiring dedications of easements and other weird things. So that's one change.
that sounds simpler.
Yeah, a lot.
You can't landlock a property.
We thought it was
However
more
you do
simple
it.
and more legally sound.
Dedicate a street,
Yeah.
easement, whatever, but, okay.
So that's one change. Now I got to read my own handwriting here. When you go through the final subdivision process, the city may require you to do public improvements, right? You're going to be building roads, sidewalks, sewers, that kind of a thing. And you have an option of completing those things, those public improvements, prior to the final approval of the final plat, or you can post a bond so that you can get your final approval, and then do the work after the fact. And so a couple of changes were made in there to clarify that you have either option. It wasn't necessarily clear. The way it was originally written sounded like you had to bond, but that's not required if you do all of the improvements beforehand. Some changes were made. Well, in the copy that you got last week, there are changes. There were allegedly changes to Title 17, mainly in the definition section. But when it went from Word to PDF, it didn't pick up the track changes. and so you won't see those. They're in there now. Hopefully. They're actually color-coded. The blue is what's being deleted, the yellow is what's being added. If it's just a black and white copy, the strike-through is what's being deleted. Oh, thank you. Another aspect, and this goes back to that landlocked issue, where if someone is required to dedicate a road or something to give someone access to a landlocked lot, there's a provision that allows for a bit of a density bonus to compensate them for the units that they may lose as a result of creating that access. And that density bonus was clarified and made more objective, so that it would be easier to enforce. So when someone is coming before you guys, you actually are the body that gets to approve that. And there's more objective criteria to determine, is this appropriate or not? We made changes. There are expiration dates to subdivision applications. We made a couple of changes to those based on input from planning staff. When someone is creating a subdivision that includes condominiums, the way it was written is that the city attorney would review the condominium declaration and the record of survey map to be sure that everything complies with the Utah Condominium Act. We actually flipped it and put that burden on the applicant. They need to have an attorney who actually specializes in that, look at it, and certify that it complies with state law. And then...
So that cuts down on administrative costs for the city.
It cuts down on administrative costs for the city.
You'll still review, but yeah.
Yes, that's true. But it's also that second set of eyes, hopefully from someone who knows what they're doing. Not that... Wow. Whew, not that our legal department doesn't. We definitely know what we're doing, but condominium law is not our specialty. And so, anyway. And then finally, under our engineering standards, which is at the very end, there's a list of different codes and regulations that need to be met. And we clarified that if there's a conflict between any two or more of those, that the more stringent standard applies. So those are the substantive changes in the changes between what you were sent on Thursday last week and what you have in front of you today. Okay, so now going right back to the beginning. Whew. This was initiated because of Senate Bill 174, which was quite a substantial bill in terms of changes to subdivision process that the state required in the legislative session about a year ago. Well, the last general legislative session. Some of the big things that were required there is that planning commissions and city councils often get involved in the subdivision approval process, and the state wanted to cut back on that. So Senate Bill 174 prohibited city councils from being involved at all. Under our current code, the city council approves both preliminary and final subdivision applications, and we had to change that. It also limited what role that you as a planning commission can have to approving preliminary applications only, not being at all involved in final applications. Those will be reviewed and approved only by staff because of Senate Bill 174.
So the developer will bring a preliminary plan, we'll ask them for changes or whatever, and then we approve that, and then they come back to staff with the final plat.
Correct.
They don't come back to us to help cut down some of that time.
Because they would already have the criteria
Yeah.
established, it's just a matter of
Yep,
verifying.
yep, at that
verifying
point, so after the preliminary plat's been approved, they're getting into the nitty-gritty on the public improvements within our engineering department, right? And they're also getting down into more, zeroing in on a more detailed plat, right? And so, anyway, those requirements will be reviewed only by staff. The Senate Bill 174 also created timelines and kind of rules for review cycles, right? So what was happening is developers were coming in and providing plans for a subdivision to a city, and then you have bad actors on the city side who are taking too long to review those plans and slowing the process down. You have bad actors on the developer side who are submitting insufficient plans and making city staff do all the work, do all the drafting work for them. And so Senate Bill 174 also narrowed down and defined the rules for those kind of review cycles. And that needed to be integrated into our ordinance.
So what are those timeframes?
Sure. So within 15 days of receiving a preliminary application, city staff has to have made an initial review on that application. And then within 20 days on a final application.
Okay.
So I don't think, generally speaking, that's going to be an issue with our planning department. Like I say, we are good actors here. But that was aimed at some cities that were taking too long. And just to be clear, that's also just for certain residential developments. Single-family homes, duplexes, and townhomes. Larger Developments don't have a set, they call it a shot clock, but a timeline or whatever to get those reviews done.
Okay.
Understanding that much larger developments may take a lot longer to review. Other requirements from Senate Bill 174 are that we needed to create a clear definition of a complete application. We needed clear engineering standards for those public improvements that are made. And then there's a new appeal process for when a developer and the city disagree about what the engineering standards or the public improvements should be. Right? If the city says, well, we need a sewer here, and the developer's saying, we don't want to put in a sewer there, we don't think you actually need it, there's an appeal process a new appeal process to address that. So those were all things that needed put in. And as we reviewed our subdivision ordinance, we felt that there were a lot of other improvements that we could make, and so we made those. We clarified the organization, like the organizational structure of the ordinance, so that it's easier to read and to follow, particularly for staff who are the ones who will be implementing it. We eliminated some things that were old carryovers from other regimes. I don't mean political regimes. I mean just statutory regimes, right? There's in our current ordinance, there's a difference. Well, it calls out a difference between major subdivisions and minor subdivisions, but if you read the code closely, there really isn't a difference.
Yeah, there isn't a difference. Yeah.
And so that's one example of something where we're going to cut that out, clean it up. General compliance with state law. We didn't try to comply just with Senate Bill 174, but made sure that we were compliant with all state subdivision processes that were already in place since it hadn't been looked at for a while. We included new enforcement mechanisms. For example, making prohibitions on creating nuisance strips or prohibiting people from deeding random property to the city that we don't want, because we don't want to have to take care of it.
What's a nuisance strip? What do you consider a nuisance strip?
Yeah, so a nuisance strip can can mean a couple of things. It can mean just a lot that is just, it's too small to build on or do anything with. Yeah. It can also be, there are situations in our city where a person has kept little tiny strips of land in front of other lots to deny access to their neighbor, right?
Yeah.
That sort of a thing.
Keep them landlocked or
Yep.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So, or,
But if they want
or
access,
not
they
even
gotta
necessarily
pay.
landlocked, but,
But, yeah.
maybe there's access from this street, but access from a different street would be easier. But they've got that little strip of land that they keep and to prevent them from doing that because whatever reason, bad neighbors or they just don't want the extra traffic, whatever it is. Stuff like
Usually
that.
it's to get money.
Yeah.
I'll sell it to you
absolutely.
for a premium.
I
is
have
what
seen,
I've seen.
I have dealt with cases
Yeah.
like that, yes. So anyway, those were things that we thought that would be nice to add. We threw in a section on acceptance of improvements, which actually is something new from Thursday that I did not previously note, where there's a certain process for if a developer creates public infrastructure, how the city approves that and receives it. And then finally, we just added other bells and whistles that we in the legal department thought would be good both for the citizens and for protection of the city. One example is, you'll remember a couple months ago, we had a subdivision application where the applicant did not have the consent of the property owners who were involved in the subdivision. And so we fixed that. You can't even turn in an application unless you have consent from everybody.
Good work, that's good.
Yeah, we remember that.
Yes, that will alleviate some public
Yeah,
attention.
and you know, that's one of those things that was really, technically it was already a requirement, right? They couldn't have gone forward without that consent, but we just put it up front, made it clear to kind of help keep things smooth.
Clarify it.
Yep, clarify it. Another example is that we require title reports for all the property that's involved in the subdivision so that we know who owns it and if the person who's actually applying for the subdivision is the owner or has authority from the owner to do it, which helps protect the city. If they're dedicating land to us, we want to be sure that it's actually someone who has the authority to do that. So anyways, that is the general picture of why we did what we did and what it is. We made large changes to this, like I say, the structure, the organizational structure of the ordinance, to some of the processes as required by Senate Bill 174. The development standards, though, in terms of the things that you need to check off in order to get your subdivision approved, remain largely the same. We for the most part, copied and pasted that from our prior ordinance so that we aren't changing too many substantive things. We identified issues in those development standards that we would like to readdress at another time and maybe make changes to. But for now, we just identified those and went forward with the more procedural and structural changes. What questions do you have for me?
Have you taken any time off? I mean, I was reviewing it from last week and it's like, wow.
Yeah,
and then
there's
you
a
telling
lot.
me you're trying to match all the laws, not just the new Senate bill, and trying to make sure everything is in compliance and stuff. My head's exploding. So we
It took a
appreciate
long time.
the work.
We spent many hours in meetings with planning staff and engineering, and So yeah, I appreciate all the input from everyone to get it done.
No, we appreciate your work on it.
Yeah,
Oh,
huge work.
that's
This
a-
was a big topic at the conference we went to.
Oh,
A lot of jurisdictions were having some heartache about it because it was such a large job.
it was a big project, and when we saw it come through in the legislative session, it was like,
So it's a testament to the team
Yeah.
and everyone to get it done. And
Absolutely.
I think in a timely manner, but this
Yeah,
is my
yeah.
only experience with it, but
For sure.
better you than me.
Fair enough.
And I think we've all been very happy that Aaron took the lead on this, because there are a lot of, legal pitfalls that one can fall into, at least as a planner, when one tries to work on this.
Well, and I like how you mentioned that meeting with the planning department and stuff, because sometimes they have issues that you'd have no idea that needs to be
Absolutely.
clarified.
Had
and
to have input from
so
them,
it
had
sounds
to have
like it's made
input
it
from
easier
our
for,
city engineer. Yep,
for everybody involved, developers, planning, zoning,
yep.
commission.
The other interesting thing that we found out in the give and take is that there are many topics where we've already made a list that we may want to address in the future that are not only really related to subdivisions per se and the mechanics of the new ordinance, that are broader topics. As an example, streets. As a city, do we want to have private streets? That's I'm sure a topic that we'll pick up. And if you have any opinions on that, we are all here to listen to that.
Yeah. Do we want private streets? If so,
Who's going to maintain them?
what should the standards be for those? Should they be
Yeah.
the same as should the standards be the same as public streets? Should they be anyway?
Yeah.
So
And then you've got
Boy, that's something to
HOAs
think
and
on.
Yeah.
it gets crazy.
The problem you have with the private streets is if they think it's a public street and it's not, and then now the city doesn't take care of it good enough, and it's like, well, it's your street.
go talk to your HOA. Yep.
Here, let us cite you for not maintaining your private street.
Well, you can't
No.
deed it now, or you won't be able to.
Yeah.
And if I could just jump in, there have been instances, not only in Midvale, but in other areas where HOAs or whatnot, property owner associations just do not have the funds to maintain their private streets, and they will come to the city and say, please help us take this over. Well, then the city ends up taking over a system that was never constructed to their standard. And so that's a good question to think about is, if we allow private streets, do we make them largely the same, have the same requirements as public streets, in the chance that we end up taking it over one day?
Right.
So.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And
About
another
this over Christmas.
another item to think about is this idea that an HOA can actually deal with private streets well. Is that really a viable idea? If I look at my HOA, it even has a hard time dealing with the park strip. So there's a lot of financial wherewithal involved if you have to take care of a street. And if you don't happen to have the expertise in your neighborhood, if you don't have a civil engineer as an example, then you have to come up with advice there and how to take care of your street. You just wonder, is that a good idea in the long run?
Yeah.
You see, we solve one problem and find four more.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, the thing I've realized, zoning is a constant work in progress.
Yeah, no, it's
It
never
never
ending.
stays
It
at one
never-
level.
It never stays.
Job security.
There's always
Yeah.
something.
There you go, exactly.
Well, we appreciate the work you put into it
Thank you.
and staff.
Yeah, so that's my presentation. Nothing exciting, but hopefully
We're all awake.
why and what we're
Yeah,
doing
no,
made
we're
sense.
still
And yeah, I'm seeing everybody moving. So mission accomplished.
All right. This is public hearing too, right?
Yeah.
So
We'll let the next batch of people in.
we'll, thank you. Well, we'll open it up to officially to a public hearing.
And we'll officially make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And just for public record, there is no one here to make public comments. All right,
We have to make a motion.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yes.
was trying to pull that up and I got
You
the
had
wrong
it right.
motion.
It was there for a sec and then it went away.
Yeah,
now a motion.
there we go.
Anyone?
I can't see that far
Oh,
away.
goodness. I move that we,
glare on my screen.
I move that we recommend approval of the city-initiated request to amend Title 16 and 17 and create Title 18 as provided in Exhibit A.
I second it.
Roll call vote?
Chair Ledke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Welcome to Midvale.
Okay, we have Elizabeth, you're up.
Thank you. I was just itching to do something.
Review and action on the 2024 Planning Commission meeting dates.
Yeah, they thought I couldn't mess this one up.
We got our
okay.
fingers crossed.
I hope so. I'm assuming you guys all saw it in the packet, not that it was the most important thing that you guys saw. Similar to this year, if you look at November and December, we have just gone ahead and gotten rid of the fourth meeting that we would have due to the holidays. This also actually happened in July as well because the meeting fell on the 24th of July. So we have gone ahead and removed that one as well preemptively. The only other one that I thought I might draw your attention to in case we wanted to talk about was we will have a meeting, or it is tentatively scheduled for September 11th. Wasn't sure if we would have any issues with having a meeting on that date, but of all the dates, I think that was the only one that might warrant some discussion.
Yeah, I don't think there's,
Maybe the pledge will mean a little bit more then.
yeah.
I'm fine with all the dates.
Yeah,
Great.
I don't see an issue.
Okay, awesome. Then we'll go ahead and put this out as our official meeting dates for 2024.
I move
Great.
that we do that.
Thank you. I don't think you have to, but I love it.
Approved by Robin.
I just wanted to say it.
Well, thank you. I think I made it just right on.
And
Actually, the city council did make a motion to approve their dates, and I let the city recorder know that you would be making a similar motion tonight. So it was actually,
Oh, there you go,
Well,
Robin.
okay,
Oh,
Robin.
thank you.
Could you second that,
I
please?
second.
Look, I had one item, I messed it up anyway, so I'm glad you're here to keep me in check.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Great, thank you.
thank you. So now with that little interlude, we will now turn the time back to Aaron for some open and public meetings training.
Back to the dry tourney. So, you remember you may remember my last training and how exciting and long
It was pretty exciting. I remember it vividly.
I'm gonna try and get you out of here quick. But we are required by state law to provide annual training on the Open and Public Meetings Act. So let's get right to it. We're gonna start with the legislative intent, which is found in Utah Code 524102, which is basically when we're engaged in the public's business, we want it to be public, right? We don't want backdoor dealings. We don't want opaqueness. We want everything to be transparent, and so that's the intent of the Open Public Meetings Act, so that the public can be aware of what we're doing and and participate. Some important definitions include electronic meetings, meetings and quorums, right? So an electronic meeting basically is fairly broad. And could include things such as email chains, right, or Facebook group chats or whatever. Anywhere where more than, let's see, you'd need 3 of you to make a quorum, so three or more of you are discussing planning commission business. You want to avoid doing that even on through electronic communication. And like I mentioned, where a quorum is 3 or more of you, anytime 3 or more of you are together discussing planning commission stuff, that is a meeting. And so I know in the past we've had discussions about, if you're coming to one of the open workshops or whatever, be careful not to discuss those issues as a group. Obviously, you can discuss it with the people who are presenting, with citizens who are there, but with each other, you need to avoid doing that kind of a thing. Meetings don't include chance gatherings or social gatherings. We have our planning commission dinners that we like to do where we get together and talk about social things, get to know each other, and that's great. Encourage that. Obviously, just need to be sure that we're not engaging in deliberations about upcoming things, talking about how boring that ordinance was to read. So, I don't want to hear any of that. So, all public meetings need to be properly noticed. The Open Public Meetings Act requires notice at least 24 hours in advance. I think other codes require notice even further in advance of that for planning commission stuff. And it has to include the agenda. What's interesting is the agenda needs to be sufficient to give notice about what we're going to talk about, but doesn't have to contain everything. And one example of that, right, is the subdivision ordinance, where the actual thing that you approved wasn't ready until today, and so having it there on the agenda is sufficient, but having all of the packet entirely ready isn't necessarily required. Okay, public meetings versus public hearings. The public meeting, of course, is the entire meeting that we're here anytime, again, a quorum of you is together discussing business. The public hearing is just that little part that's a part of each specific item, right, where the public can come up and make comments about that item that is being discussed. Closed meetings, you don't get to do as a planning commission. Shucks.
No closed meetings for us.
No closed meetings. I was going to say that first thing, discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual. Gossiping, I guess, is appropriate under a closed meeting. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Yeah, that's most of this stuff is for litigation or, if city council is going to want to terminate someone or purchase real estate or something. All right, common violations of the Open Public Meetings Act. Ex parte communication. Can anybody tell me what that is?
That'd be like if I was getting a text message from somebody saying, how's that going, and can you pass this for me?
Absolutely, yeah. Yep, that's ex parte. Okay. If an applicant's like, hey, Robin, I know you're on the planning commission.
Yeah, did you want another cookie?
Need your help? Yes. That was the perfect example. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was too.
Or do you want to mass text everybody and say, we are going to pass this, or we are not going to pass this?
Yeah. Well, and another example, is if you're sitting in a meeting and you're texting each other about, hey, what do you think your vote's going to be? That kind of a thing would be inappropriate.
Can I text and go, this is boring?
Not if I'm presenting.
Want to know.
Actually, usually it is only when I'm presenting, but the other thing I would say, while you can obviously receive texts and whatnot while you're here, it's wise not to, because if people are back there seeing you texting, they're going to suspect that, they're...
Has the appearance.
Yep. It has the appearance of the ex parte communication. So be conscious of that. And then another common violation is the meeting after the meeting. the after meeting where we all get together and we talk about, whatever we just voted on or something that's coming up or whatever.
And that's why we always have to make sure we adjourn first so that the recording stops.
Yeah, yep. So after the meeting, before the meeting, great to talk, keep it personal and keep the planning commission business discussions only during the meeting. Minutes obviously are taken during meetings. Thank you, Aubrey.
Yes, thank you.
They're an important recording, obviously, of what we discuss, and there are requirements for when they need to be posted, and I think she does a great job of being on top of that.
She's good about keeping certain things out, too. Things that I say that shouldn't be said.
She's great with grammar, that's all I can say.
She knows when to censor you, huh? All right, and then if there is a violation of the Open and Public Meetings Act, particularly with regard to a planning commission meeting, it could result in a lawsuit. So that's what we are trying to avoid when we are sticklers about it. That lawsuit can request that whatever action we took be voided, right? So if we approved some sort of application or some sort of zone ordinance change or whatever, the station area plan, and we violated the Open and Public Meetings Act in doing so, that action can be reversed, which doesn't sound like the worst thing, but it can cause some problems.
Yeah.
But we can certainly call you or Vendelin if we have questions on an agenda item or
absolutely
and get more details and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if you have questions for us and you're like, hey, I don't understand this item or whatever, give Vendelin a call. Give me a call. That's absolutely wonderful and great. You can even call one of your buddies, just not two of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
So what's your understanding of this? Oh, okay, that's what I got too. Okay.
Yep.
We're on the same page.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, obviously we want to avoid lawsuits. Lawyers love them. Nobody else does. What questions have we got? You're all Open Public Meetings Act experts, and that's good. That's the way we want it. If you have any any questions about meetings or whatever, feel free to give me a call. Feel free to approach me here at the meeting, whatever. But yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. And hopefully that wasn't too long.
That was great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have that.
All right, Vendelin.
Yes, I'll go over here. This is our last meeting before Christmas, and we wanted to, as staff, just express our appreciation for you, and that we think that all of you are doing a great job as commissioners. And it's a sort of a thankless job a little bit at times. I'm sure that sometimes your neighbors may not be so happy with you. So anyway, we got a little treat for you, and hope that you'll have a nice holidays. If you are bored over the holidays, we have lots of planning books you can check out, or you can think about what you would like to do as a commission next year. We talked about that a little bit last week. So if you have any ideas as a commission, if you want to learn certain things, visit certain places that may, impact, what we are doing, then please let us know. And getting back to the discussion that Aaron had with you, if you ever have a question, please don't hesitate to call any of us.
Sometimes you may have a question that you don't necessarily want to bring up in a public meeting. And outside of the public meeting, sometimes there's simply more time to delve deeper into the background of certain things. So don't hesitate to call us or to come and visit. I think that's where a lot of learning happens on our side and also on your side, if we delve deeper into the questions that you may have. And that's also I think a good practice to help us maybe think about how we can do things better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you and all of the staff for all of your work.
Yeah, you guys do great. I mean, this has been a great opportunity to be part of this commission and working with this staff. I think they do a great job, and as the chairman, you've made my life a lot easier. Just your availability and taking phone calls and everything else. So we appreciate you and wish you a happy Christmas.
I move that we adjourn at 7:46.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So don't run away yet.
Okay, now running.